Welcome. All right, this is our Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. Please be advised we're being broadcast over the internet, and as most of you know, Rex Peebles, there you are, yes, started his position as the Assistant Commissioner of Workforce Academic Affairs and Research on December 3rd. Are you counting the hours or? Welcome. Stacy Silverman has been serving as the interim assistant commissioner since March. Thank you, Stacy, for your heroic duties that you took on in the middle of the legislative session. Stacy will be presenting some items today and then handing the reins over to Rex. So I just want to mention a few activities that the P16 division has been working on. The integrated reading and writing professional development. The board staff has been working with Austin Community College faculty and team up of Cengage Learning to plan an additional year of professional development activities supporting the integration of the developmental education reading and writing courses. The second year will include webinars and regional workshops where faculty and support staff continue to build their IRW courses and share with colleagues and content experts best practices and innovative approaches to preparing students for academic coursework. Any thoughts? Moving on, Gentex. In order of Gentex Week, which was November 18th through the 22nd, all Texas high school students in 9th through 12th grades were invited to participate by creating a short video for the Gentex Take the Challenge Scholarship Contest. A $1,500 college scholarship prize was awarded to Hannah Martinez from Fort Worth, Texas, the student producer of the winning Take the Challenge video featured on the Gentex site. Additionally, James Pace High School in Brownsville, Texas, completed the most Apply Texas college applications during that week and was recognized with the Gentex Week Star Award and received a $1,000 award of Gentex swag. Also, as part of the Take the Challenge video contest, awards were given to the 10 most inspirational teachers based on student contestant nominations made through the video submission process. And then last, the Texas Teacher Residency Program. The coordinating board staff hosted a webinar on November 14th for the 12 institutions listed below. I don't have the list. The applications are due January 2nd, 2014. One grant award will be made by March the 1st after approval by the board chair and vice chair. The coordinating board expects the first cohort of teacher residents will begin summer or fall of 2014. Was there a list? Someone wanted to just read that list?
Dr. Booker knows who they are. He is overseeing this project. We did a webinar with the 12 applicants that, with the intent to apply, to walk them through the grant and to get them ready for the final submission process.
Good afternoon, members of the board.
You got to push the little red button.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Jarrell Booker, Senior Director of Educator Quality and Special Projects. I apologize. I usually don't have my phone out when I actually speak to the board, but I did want to give you the list of the schools that actually are intending to apply. Texas Tech University, Texas Southern University, University of Texas at Arlington, Texas A&M Kingsville, Texas A&M Commerce, University of Texas at Brownsville, Texas State University, Midwestern University, University of Houston, Tarleton State University, University of Texas at Permian Basin, and University of North Texas at Dallas.
Very good.
Those will be the 12.
Congratulations to those schools. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
would it be appropriate if the committee makes a recommendation to the board to recognize Hannah Martinez, James Pace High School, and the 10 most inspirational teachers at our next board meeting?
I think that's a great idea. You have a
I move
motion?
that.
Certainly.
Have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We got that? Thank you.
Got it. We'll take care of it.
I'd like to see the video. That'd be fun.
Where's
Is
the-
it already on the agenda? Oh, okay. All right. Agenda item 2, consideration of approval of the minutes from the September 25th meeting.
Move approval.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 3 is consideration of approval of the consent calendar. Discussion? Questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
One item was not on the consent that received no comment. I believe that I understand it well, and that is item Q1. I would move that we adopt the consent calendar with the addition of Q1.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. The motion passes. So item Q1 is added to the consent calendar.
Move approval of the consent calendar.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Public testimony at this time? None? All right. Thank you. We don't have any public testimony. Item 5, matters relating to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. A is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to additional funding for the Transition Texas project. Dr. Laredo.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Previously, under the authority and approval from Dr. David Gardner, we received authority to fund Amarillo College as part of the work that is being done with our student success related to the first-year experience. We had applied in collaboration with the College for All Texans Foundation for a USA grant around the proven model that we have already identified with our work around that first-year experience, and we're lucky to make the finalist. Unfortunately, we didn't get the grant. But because so much work and success we have found within this effort, we decided to use some money that we had to continue the advancement of this work. And that is where the original $90,000 was granted to Amarillo College because of their work around this model. And it became known as Transition Texas. And so now we would like to provide an additional funding to expand this model and further our efforts. And so that is why this request is being brought forth to you today.
All right. Questions and discussion? Yes, Dr. Tesher.
Where is the $90,000 coming from?
It's our CRI money, college readiness money that we had.
So we have grant money that's in reserve that we can use for this?
It's money that we get back from refunds where it might not have been utilized, and so that is the money that it came from. And so what we're doing now is scaling our work. We're not doing pilots, in other words. We're using money that we have in order to scale what we have shown by evaluation is working and moving a needle in terms of student success. And so this is really a trainer of trainer model is what it is, so that it perpetuates. It'll continue going on, and it's not something that ends when you only train 4 institutions.
Will this be used to benchmark other institutions in the future?
Yes, well, what we're doing is that because of the trainer of trainer model, you're bringing more institutions into that pipeline so that you can then, as we look at the data and look at their success ratios, the number of students who enter and the number of students complete, it helps us see what's happening between that first and second year experience. Dr. Gardner may want to say something.
Maybe you've thrown out a lot of sort of key phrases, but I'm not sure all the board really knows what this project really does, and if they're going to approve it.
What it does, it
or
takes.
not, they need to know really. Trainer of trainers is used in a lot of different kinds of programs.
In the first year experience, within that, it's looking at what the institutions are doing within that course, and it is developing students for tutoring skills, mentoring skills, helping students as they migrate into that first year. And so the training and the model that is created is a tutor mentoring model. We have found in our work around AVID that the tutor mentoring concept really is showing the fact of moving a needle and more students retaining and not dropping out of that first year. And so because of that work that we've done over the last 4 years, we are expanding this, and this is how Transition Texas came about. That became the new title. And this is where we are scaling what we know is working, because we have funded, as you will see a little bit later, through our work in our work study program, we've got that mentor model going. So it's really spreading across the state. So that's the trainer of trainer model, so that institutions who don't have it can also pick it up.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. So we are on item 5B, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to awards for teacher quality grant projects for the 2014-15 grant year. Judy.
Every funding cycle of the money that we receive for teacher quality comes back to you for approval. This is the new funding that we have received in the amount of $4.6 million. We have gone through an RFP process for institutions to apply for the funding. It is to do training in the core subject areas. The money is awarded to private public universities who collaborate with public school teachers in that training. So this is covering not only math and science, English language arts. Those are the core, the social studies core areas is where the training it will be focused on. What has taken place in this process, and as you will notice on your application, I think that there was 31 applicants for this cycle of funding. Of the 31 applicants, because of the money allotted, we are only able to fund 12, and these were ranked. There was 18 reviewers in the review process of these applications. It's a very lengthy application, in addition to the fact that the federal government has stipulated the guidelines of what has to be followed and what must be contained in the training. And so based on the review of the panelists, the 18 reviewers, and the total amount of the applications submitted, 12 have risen to that top rank. And you have got the list of the institutions along with their partnering institution, as well as the amount of funding that is being requested for your approval. If you have more detailed questions, and this is also evaluated. There's an evaluation requirement for all of this as we go through these 2-year cycles of funding, or year cycle of funding. Elizabeth Power is the director, and there's Dr. Booker. I didn't see him a minute ago. There he is.
Questions?
So this is federal funds, and private institutions are eligible. I see that on there as well.
Yes, and the money comes to us through TEA. It's
through TEA.
It's channeled through us.
Okay. You said evaluation. So evaluation of its effectiveness, is there criteria in advance that the institutions understand the evaluation will take place according to?
Yes, and Elizabeth may want, Dr. Booker may want to speak to the evaluation process, because it's also clearly defined of how it takes place. But the institutions do know what they are going to be evaluated against, and the program is evaluated as it's implemented and as it's completed. And there's the last year's grant was awarded to an institution that oversaw the evaluation process. So it's pretty stipulated within the federal guidelines how this has to be implemented.
While you're coming up, my question would be, in the evaluation process, how is that evaluation used? To help the institution continue to have performance improvement, or to look at best practices, benchmarking for other institutions to adopt an effective program that's already in place and can just be taken out of the box and said, let's do this at our institution?
Once again, Jarrell Booker, Senior Director, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm going to let Dr. Powers talk about the specifics of the evaluation, but the outcome of the evaluation can we use it for a number of different reasons. One, to improve the programs themselves. Two, to determine practices for the districts to start to implement themselves. So a lot of these are partnerships with the school districts. And three, it drives other policies that when we do future grants, it would drive that, although we don't do pilot programs anymore, so we'll have to re-examine how that works for future funding. But the number one goal is to actually improve the way they do practices at their universities and how the districts improve their training and professional development at the districts.
So I think Dr. Booker's kind of covered it, and I'll just kind of give you a little bit of detail. So you would ask about the outcomes. There's really two levels. So all through the grant period, we're collecting information and feeding it to project directors, and they use it in a formative way. So if teachers are struggling here, struggling there, they see something in that evaluation data, they're able to adapt their program over the year or 2 years. The other piece is evaluation, and those are pretty standard kinds of things based on what we hope to accomplish, and they're directly connected. So they look at things like content growth, pre and post tests. They look at things like concept maps. Have we increased the depth of content for that teacher? Every teacher is theoretically observed, although you never get 100%, to see that those kind of practices that have been proven in the research are actually being implemented in the classroom. And that's always the biggest challenge is you can know how to do something, but implementing it is more complicated. One of the things that, for instance, with board certification of teachers has proven really successful is reflective practice. So that's a part of it, is looking at those reflective practice, and we think about this as growth. Over that 2 years, are we moving those teachers towards becoming more effective? So there's multiple measures to look at that.
In the external review process, are the institutions redacted or blinded to the reviewers so they don't understand, they don't know the identity of the institution?
No, it would be very difficult to do that because they work within regions. A person who is within a region would not be reviewing other universities, and they're not from universities that have submitted generally. Many of our reviewers are from outside the state, so we really need, they're pretty complicated projects. We need reviewers that have expertise in content and the most effective ways to provide professional development, but then they also have to understand the law. And so most of our reviewers have specialties in more than one area. So we draw people from all across the country. We've been very fortunate in our recommendations and have built up a group of researchers and reviewers that understand Texas, the needs of Texas, rural and urban, all of those challenges that we face in Texas in helping teachers become more effective.
And for your interest, we're mindful of that, trying to make sure you don't have that sort of issue with the reviewing people that may have a conflict or anything like that. We're very mindful in the assignment of the applications.
Yeah, and you obviously know, but my question is how are you mitigating bias? And I think you've taken some reasonable measures. So I'll move approval,
Okay.
Which it does require.
It does. Okay. We have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Thank you. The motion passes. Item 5C is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to additional funding for regional teams for the vertical alignment training project.
Over the past several years, through the lead effort of University of North Texas, the project of the vertical alignment issue was developed, the Avatar project, what we call Avatar, and that is connecting the university faculty with the post-secondary faculty in 3 disciplines, in science and mathematics and in English language arts. And the purpose was to begin the development of modules that would help look at this curriculum and develop that pipeline of discussion as they are preparing their students in that subject matter to make this transition into post-secondary education without having to have the need for developmental education. And so we funded this project for over $500,000, began this work, And so we are now nearing the end, but we've got some expansion work we'd like to continue working on with an additional $61,000 being awarded in order to complete this work. We have teamed with the regional service centers, 2 regional service centers, in order to help develop and implement this model so that we could then scale this to other service centers across the state. And so this is why we are coming to you today. If you will notice on the back of your blue page, it lists the additional amount of funding where we are providing it to the other service centers in order to continue the expansion of this work. This has proven highly successful and certainly very similar to our Pathway project that I guess I don't remember what year it was originally started, but it certainly is needed to have this dialogue between secondary teachers, post-secondary. And the other issue around this, too, that is really important to us now is that it has begun the dialogue around HB5 and these alignment teams, vertical alignment teams that have been created, because as part of HB5, there is a need for us to collaborate with the public schools around not only the special courses that are in that bill, but also around those courses that are remedial, that are going to be offered at the high school level for students who are not showing college readiness in math or in English. So this work now has taken in that discussion point to help these vertical alignment teams begin to address parts of HB5.
David has a question.
So for the $500,000 we've spent to this point, what have we learned? Have we set up a best practice? And you said it's highly successful. Do we have metrics that we can benchmark? And how do you know it's been highly successful?
And the evaluation is not complete, but what we know thus far is that we have broken the barrier of the fact that I'm in K-12 and you're in college, and our wall shall not come down. You know, this is a different world. What it has caused and what we have found in our evaluation, that the teams have come together to purposely look at their curriculums, to look and see where the colleges are saying students may need to know this material. These are the skills and knowledges that they are needing, and are we providing that? So it's brought them together at the table purposely, is when we originally started the funding of this through the University of North Texas, but they also created the modules that began this dialogue. So the use of how to answer specific questions, how to modify where things are not working is showing that these teams are doing that. And if you notice on the second page, if you look at the service centers that are involved, we're looking at 6 service centers alone that we've added when we originally started only with, I think it was Region 10 and Region 11. We only started with 2 regions who took on this task to create those vertical alignment teams. I attended the meeting at Region 10 when they first rolled out the modules of how to create the vertical alignment teams. And there was visiting regional service centers at this meeting. There was probably 200 people in the room. The public school system has 20 regional service centers, and regional service centers are the deliverers of professional development to the public schools, in addition to other efforts such as vertical alignment work. And so we started out with 2, and now we have others that are coming on board in order to take this model and create that vertical alignment work across the state. This is one of the areas that the commissioner, and I don't know if you might recall, has mentioned on occasions that we needed to do more of this work across the state if we were going to get K-12 and post-secondary really working together. And now with HB5, it really has become a reality.
I'm not sure that answered your question, did it?
Well, I think the answer is when secondary educators and higher educators communicate and collaborate, students benefit.
Well, yes.
Is that the soundbite?
Well, it is, and we're seeing it happen. It's really taking place.
And I guess my follow-up is how is the TEA and the other centers going to spread this message and this opportunity? Because now we have, what, 8, 2 plus 6?
Yes.
And there's over 20 in the state, so that there's other service centers that are not in sync with this. What is the plan for the two commissioners to move this statewide?
Well, when you say it's not in sync, you're right. They're not doing it now, but I think because more than almost half of these have come on board, and because of HB 5, that collaboration now is even going to be more purposeful. So where you have service centers who have the model in place and ready to move, it will make it easier for the other ones to take on and look at this to help implement it in their own systems. The other thing, too, that it's also involved the work of the P16 councils. And so the P16 councils, which is what we started, 5 years ago, in our work of trying to bring all of the elements within a community that really had a vested interest in education. Not only educators, but business, industry, church groups, organizations. There are viable P16 councils now across the state, and I think there's 49 of them, that are really councils who have developed the true components of what a P16 council is. Well, the vertical alignment work has now included P16 councils, so it's even gotten bigger. So I think in answer to your question, I think HB 5 has now made that the foundation real, because we are going to have to collaborate. We can't control it, but I think we have helped seed this process for others to begin to look at with the 2 regional service centers who worked with UNT in order to do this. And that's why these others have come on board and want to take the model and implement it.
If I could provide a little context, I think she was answering your question, but beyond that, I think we've been doing this long enough that people have forgotten that the initial reason for doing this was because we developed the college and career readiness standards. And,
that's right.
You know, as the trustees mentioned, when you roll out a new plan, you need to make sure the people who actually are doing the real implementation, the faculty and staff, know about it. There are thousands of teachers in the state that needed to be brought on board, and as well as college and university faculty, in terms of what were those standards about, so they were talking from the same place. Now, with as Judy mentioned, with HB 5, that emphasizes it anymore, but you've got all these teachers, many of whom may have been teaching 20, 30 years, and how do you get to the people who are actually into the classroom and help them know what to do? Now, I think there's more work to be done with TEA. I think that would be my answer to your question in terms of making sure this is done. We still aren't quite sure how HB 5 will roll out, but we know we have to work together, and it's not enough just for us to do one sector and TEA to do another sector. We have to do this together, and I think this is the model for it. I don't know that we can say it really hits everybody as we hope it would. I think that would be fooling ourselves a little bit, but I think we're providing the basic materials to make that possible in a fairly low-cost fashion if you consider the thousands of teachers that are out there.
Right.
But I think we have to, and there's a sequence of your questions here. I mean, which we have to make sure that we're evaluating everything to make sure it's actually working, that some things can feel good programs, but they're not making that much of a difference. And whatever we do, we need to make sure that we're on the mark in doing that, and we will do that. So I appreciate.
And there is an evaluation process in place that's ongoing, because this project is not complete, and we can certainly share with you what we have.
But do you have a mechanism to share that with all of the other regions as well? That's my question.
Yes, because as we've added on, and as we've worked with the core, the ones who originally began, the refinement of that work or issues that we faced have brought us to where we are now to be able to expand this and offer it to others. So it's been an improvement process all the way from when we first started with Avatar.
And it occurs to me that we probably need to look at staff to make sure we have efforts that are related to vertical alignment. So we have our pathways, which you mentioned. We've got some of what we're doing with the voluntary transfer compacts. We need to make sure that these projects are internally are interacting enough so we can see where there's some hate to use the word synergy, but synergy in terms of making sure they're working together and making more out of those. And I think we could probably do better at that.
So similar to our higher education annual event, do these ESCs have an annual event where this can be discussed, presented, or is there an opportunity for us to bring the leaders of the various ESCs to our event next fall?
That would be a possibility. I will, in answer to your question, in January, there is what they call the Midwinter Conference for all school administrators and public school administrators from principals on up that we are also involved in. We have made presentations at in terms of our work, and it's held here in Austin. It's hugely attended. And where all of the things that are taking place, models, new programs, new things that are impacting public education, there are sessions throughout a 2.5-day process here. And this is certainly a place where the service centers could present this model. It's certainly a place where we could go and present the model. It doesn't leave it just up to them.
So we've presented in the past. Are we
Yes.
also invited to January to present again and update them on the success of this program?
No, we could be. We could be invited. We've done it on the college and career readiness standards. We've applied to make a presentation, and because of our relationship to TEA, because it is a TEA, TASA, the administrator organization of the state, it's a co-jointly conference. They very graciously added things on when we've called and said we'd like to make a presentation to your membership. And we've also, I'll tell you where else we have done presentations in the summer, is at the Secondary School Principals Conference here in Austin, because principals are heavily involved in this work. And so that would be another place where this could be rolled out this coming summer. They usually meet in June.
Yeah, I would encourage our staff to use every opportunity possible to present all of the activities that we're doing, including this one, at any of those conferences.
And where we also have had a platform of presentation regularly is with the Texas Counseling Association. Every conference that they've had, major conference, they do one in January, they do one again in July. Jan Fries has always put us on a session to present what is pertinent that counselors need to know about, the things that are occurring, and that is another venue.
Dan Fries is director of the
He is the
Counseling
executive
Association.
director of the counseling,
Judy, where did the $61,000 come from?
our college readiness money.
Okay.
She's got a stash.
And then
No, it's not very big. It's
a general question,
the
the P through 16 groups, is that open to the public? Do they meet in secret, or how do they?
They're created. They've been created in communities, and a person took the lead to begin a council. And no, they're not in secret.
Well, I tried to contact the group in my region because I just thought I'd go and observe, attend,
I'll
or
get you
something.
the information.
And I kind of think they didn't want me to come, so
No,
I just
they're
wondered if it was a
open.
closed session.
No, they should not be closed meetings. They are meetings that are held, like I said, there could be as many as 20 people on a council, 25 people that are working to improve the educational system of their entire community.
So that, to me, it should be publicized. I would think parents would want to come and hear. I would think there'd be a lot of interested people in that kind of a cohort. So,
And I can provide for you the list of all of the recognized councils in the state. Unfortunately, we lost our funding under the CACG grant, College Access Challenge grant. We worked with councils, P16 councils, for 3 years. We had 3 yearly meetings, keeping them up to date, moving them on understanding data, everything that was occurring in education. Attendance 125, 150 every single time we met. It was really hard when we lost the funding because they felt that process that they were allowed to engage in, to come as a team and to be kept informed, was really invaluable to them as they moved their councils forward. And some of these councils have become very large. My one example for that, or two examples, would be the one in San Antonio and the one in Houston. that just, in fact, the one in Houston won a national award because of their work. But I can certainly provide you the information on who those are. And we developed in our division, along with the leadership of Priscilla Martinez, the what we call the process for being recognized as a council to ensure that all of those elements of what best practice is said in terms of the research that is out there, so that they wanted funding from our agency, they had to show us that they were rising to the table and becoming what a true council needed to become in order to be effective.
Judy, does one of those requirements include openness?
Oh, yes. They're not closed. They should not be closed meetings.
I just mentioned that if not, it should be included.
Yeah.
I will say that aside from that, these are not state organizations,
Right.
and they all are somewhat different. That reflect in some ways their
Opposition
local communities,
right.
And you understand that. So
It's based on their needs, but we did require certain elements.
Okay.
But no, they're supposed to be open meetings.
I just never got the time or the place. So it's hard to attend if you don't know where
Yeah, well.
or when. All right, do we have a motion for or other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5D, update on the Adult Basic Education Diagnostic Profile of the TSI assessment and the development of the ABE operational plan for serving identified students. All right, Judy.
I'm going to give you an update of where we are in this work. We have been at work very, very hard since we made the presentation to you on the TSI in April. The ABE diagnostic component of the TSI assessment is in process, is being field tested and developed across the state. And we should have reached our required numbers by March, and we'll be in the process of also looking at that data results with our task force teams, and we'll be coming back to you in April with that information. But the College Board is being very effective in their work in helping us with this field testing and developing the diagnostic profile for students who fall below the DevEd level. The second phase of this, if you recall, was, and I can't remember, I think it was Mr. Lalani who said, well, how are we going to begin to serve these students when they are identified? Because in the past, with our multiple assessments that were used, students that tested below college readiness were all placed in developmental education. We did not know if they were below high school level performance, they were on the cusp, or if they were even at even lower basic skill level performance, which according to federal standards might have been first, second, third grade skill. And putting all the students in this one bucket was really not fair, because we weren't adequately addressing the needs of students to academically move them in the pathways that they were trying to achieve. And that is what this test and this operational plan that we have been working on, have been getting input with our partnering groups, TWC, and TWIC, we've come to the table and we have created a document that has been vetted with the leadership here at the agency. We had a group of 18 major stakeholders across the state in to meet with us on December the 3rd to look at the proposed plan of how we would begin to address this population identified through this new testing process. We are going to, based on their thoughts, their recommendations, and suggestions for the improvement of the document, we will be doing a webinar on the 17th of December, taking it statewide for the first time to get input, to get the thoughts from the field. From the meeting on the 3rd here, the consensus of the group was that it was a good plan, that we were moving in a direction that would help institutions. And there are some things that will have to be developed. but that will certainly help institutions begin to look at themselves and say, how can we best serve this population? After the 17th and the webinar and the comments we get back from the field, we will again begin to tweak. And then we take the plan onto the road. And our first presentation will be at Amarillo College on January the 13th. We will be making 9 visits across the state to get input from all stakeholders as to this operational plan, to get their feedback as how it would impact them in terms of the implementation. And keep in mind that the recommendations that we would be coming back with are recommendations that will help institutions. It is not a plan that says you do this way. It's an open plan that allows the institutions, based on their populations, to better look at themselves and see what resources are out there that could help them address the population. So we will be coming back with, after many revisions and much input, we have 9 institutions that will be hosting us to come to their institution, and they will be inviting people from their regional area to come and listen to the presentation and provide feedback.
So am I misunderstanding, but I had someone ask me the other day, don't the school districts get some federal money to do adult education? And so would not a pathway be good for us to funnel these students or adults back into that curriculum?
And based on the plan speaks to all of that.
Oh, okay.
It will provide the pathways. It shows the pathways that are options.
Right.
It shows where the funding is,
right,
where the funding is not.
Okay.
And one of the major things that we are finding out, even in our work with TWIC and with TWC, is that our needs for developing a very comprehensive referral system. So a lot of good things have come from this discussion, but you are correct. There are private entities, there are school systems, there's, of course, TWC, the workforce commissions who are doing training. So there's a lot of avenues, but many people don't know about all these avenues.
But we're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
No,
we're actually
no.
trying to just make the pathway clear.
That is correct.
Okay.
We're trying to make the pathways clear. But the other thing, remember, we have 24 institutions that we have provided funding for over the last 3-4 years around this population of students who have really begun to do good work, who we know with evaluation results that they are not only bringing students into this pipeline, they are being successful with these students. And so that information is going to be moved out into the field.
And with the comparing population that the ISD has? Can we
No,
see?
it's not comparing. It's looking at what did you come in to do?
Right.
Did you achieve it? Did you leave here and did you get into that workforce? So it's a different, we're not comparing ourselves to what they're doing.
It'd be nice to see who has better outcomes, because if we need to funnel money somewhere, we need to put it to the place that has the best outcome. If the ISD people are not doing as good a job as our schools are doing in higher ed, then maybe we need to talk about how do we really do a better job for this population.
And that
you need to clarify something, because when we talk about this population, this isn't, they're not all alike. And there's a wide range in ABE. And I think this is one of the misunderstandings that some of the community colleges have had, because when they hear ABE, they think of the sort of the lowest level. And we've got some that are very near being, at least at the developmental ed level. And so there's this distribution. And so there's so part of what's being addressed is where's the best place, and you were getting at, to serve those folks. And then, so if you might want to describe that briefly, but before you say that, let me mention one of the issues, regardless of all that, is compared to other places, Texas has very little money for this population. And so one can identify the right placement. There will still be no place according to that placement. And that's a longer term issue that has to be addressed.
That's why I want us to put the money where we get our biggest bang. So,
when we look at this population of students who fall below high school level. There is really levels within, 6 levels within that. And as we look at levels 5 and 6, we have found that these students can be served in developmental education and can move into our post-secondary pipeline and can be successful. Levels 4 and 5 may be students on the cusp that with some support could make that transition and still be served by us. There's also a difference in the student who does not have a high school diploma as opposed to the student who does have a high school diploma and where they can be served. And as we look at the students in the NRS level, the federal levels of 1, 2, and 3, which is the lowest level, students that are functioning at second, third grade reading performance, where can we best channel those students? And so this profile will be able to help us with that information, help the institutions. But keep in mind that institutions also, as part of our redesign, are required to look at a student holistically. So what if I test in developmental education in English and in reading, or reading and writing, but in mathematics I'm really low? Does that mean that I'm totally going to be placed out and not allowed to stay? Institutions have to begin to look at that profile that says, what are the real skills of this student and where can we best serve them? Is it within our institution, keeping in mind if it is a high school completer or a non-high school completer? So there's a lot of variables that the institutions will be looking at, but as Dr. Gardner says, that bucket of range between level 1 and level 6, there is a pipeline of students that will be able to remain within our institutions and be served within our existing program. And so that's why knowing everything that is out there, all the providers, because there's many providers, where would it be best to channel a student who may fall into this lowest level? And so in this model that we have created, it speaks to those two populations, the population of students who are not high school complete, the population of students who are high school complete. And then it totally breaks it out. So we're still in this development mode, but it's got a basis, it's got a foundation, and we've already begun to get very good input onto where we are right now and what we've had to tweak, and so we're now taking it out to the field. The commissioner wanted to ensure that we had vast representation out there with this document before we came back to the board.
Good. Questions? This was for discussion only.
Well, here I am again. Just can't help myself. Been trying to sit back over here, not say anything, and I don't want to sound like I'm being, we're doing a lot of good stuff, and we're spending a lot of money. But every time I pick up a news article, there's something posted about how we keep getting further and further behind. I think I sent Linda a link to some tests that were given all over this world, and I asked her to distribute this. I assume she did to the board members. And the United States is ranked. I mean, we're not even holding ground. We're losing ground, even compared to some of the industrialized nations in this world. I mean, we're still losing ground. And then what bothers me is the United States is maybe ranked like 12th or 13th in the world, and Texas is ranked 43rd among the states in the United States in terms of academic achievement. And it seems like to me we're just kind of dancing around a big fat stinking elephant that nobody really wants to address. And I tell you what, we could do more if we just get people to turn off Jerry Springer and all these daytime dramas that people sit around and watch all day that's creating all the social ills in our homes. And it doesn't seem like, I know I'm not going to get any comments, but all you people out there in TV land, whoever you are, whoever the camera's at, I want y'all to hear this, because it doesn't mean that what we're doing here is not important. It doesn't mean that it's not going to have an impact. But the fact is that I've been sitting on this board for 3 years, and I've been around a long time, and I'm just extremely frustrated, and I'm not trying to impose my moral values on anybody, but I'm just telling you, until we really get serious about addressing some of the real issues that this society faces, we're not going to really have a major impact. So some of y'all are going to say I'm a radical, or I'm right-wing, or I'm this or that or whatever, but you know what? They call Jesus worse than that. So I ain't going to worry too much about what anybody says about me. But the fact is, I don't know what to do except keep trying. But it's extremely frustrating for, I know, everyone that cares about kids and education and where we need to be in this country, and it breaks my heart to see us try so hard and achieve so little at times. I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Golden. All right, any other questions?
Y'all can roll your eyes now.
All right. Item 5E, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the issuance of a request for applications regarding a regional professional development program addressing adult basic education and programming.
This money, the $3.7 million, is the money that we have received from the legislature in terms of adult basic education over this year and the next year biennium for utilization around our work with ABE. Because of our plan and the fact that there are institutions who will need help in identifying and working with the populations they've identified, in addition to the fact that we have institutions who already have programs that are successfully working with students and moving them through a pipeline, it is imperative and certainly been brought to our attention by our partnering agencies and institutions that there will need to be extensive professional development across the state to help faculties, administrators, in terms of how best to serve these populations and to understand all that is out there and available to them. And so this money and the request to put out an RFA would be to develop that statewide professional development effort to be implemented as early as this spring of 14 into next year, so that we can address the population identified.
Any questions?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5F is the consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the reallocation of work-study mentorship program funding.
If you recall, at our September committee meeting, we had received through TWC, the labor award grant that they received, we were given $1 million that was specified to be given to specific programs who were helping the retraining of displaced workers in high critical employment areas. At the time, you approved 4 institutions that we currently fund. After looking at those 4 institutions, the Workforce Commission, who is the partner to this grant, their workforce boards found that there were 2 other institutions that they wanted to add and reallocate that money, because we were given $1 million, so $1 million has not changed. It is the same amount. But we did not want to award the additional 2 institutions with that money without you knowing, since originally you had only approved 4 institutions. And so you see the addition, you see the list now of the 6 institutions. You see the amount of the funding that they will receive, because originally the 4 were going to get funding enough for 50 students each. And so now it has changed, and you'll see the number of students they are going to be serving. It's the workforce boards that decide those numbers. It's not our institutions. Even though our 4 institutions originally said they had the capacity to train 50 more, the workforce boards decided that they wanted to reallocate that amount, and so this is why we are coming back to you today. 2 of these institutions, if you will note in this description, so if you have any questions, the top two institutions where it says admin money, they did not, in their original grant from us, they did not receive enough funding to have that support, and so this grant allows for that. So that's why it looks a little different, where you see no admin, no admin, no admin. Two of them, we needed to provide them with that support money for data collection in terms of their evaluation of their program.
Okay, just for clarification, Judy's discussing 5G. So
Did I skip one accidentally?
yeah, we skipped.
Oh, I'm
but we'll
sorry.
go back to it. That's fine.
Okay.
So she did a great explanation of 5G. So we have a question, David.
You want to go ahead and take up 5G
Yeah, we
now?
could do 5G now.
So, Judy, it says that vocation-specific training. What vocations are they training for?
It's a critical area depending on the region where these schools are. And so it's determined by workforce need.
Who makes a determination?
The workforce boards. It's done by the workforce boards within those regions.
Who are the regional entities of the TWC?
Yeah.
Okay, so the TWC, through its regional boards, identify what the regional needs are.
That's right.
And then this is used to fund that with both a combination of ABE and vocational specific training.
Well, and our ABE money had already been awarded to these institutions to create those programs. And because these programs are good programs, that's how TWC made that determination. And this is the critical need areas.
Right. This is not new additional ABE money.
No.
It's a coupling of both ABE
That is correct. It's a
and
coupling.
vocation-specific training.
And these schools are already doing the training that TWC deems is a critical area. And that's why they're going back to these schools. And we did fund these schools originally with ABE money. This money is to pay tuition for additional students that are going to be participating in these training programs delivered by these institutions.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No one opposes. Then 5G passes. Thank you. So we'll go back to 5F, consideration of a reallocation of the work-study mentorship program.
And I apologize, my papers got stuck.
I understand.
The work-study money, we receive for a 2-year period in the biennium. Institutions apply for this funding at the beginning of the biennium, and it's awarded. What we do every 3 months is go back and ensure that each institution is spending the money awarded for work-study students that they have applied. And when we have money sitting on the table and other institutions are needing more money because they have more students that have applied, we come back to you every 3 months. And as you see on the page provided in the back, these are the institutions where there is some money sitting on the table, and we are reallocating those funds. We try to ensure that the $5 million that we are awarded over the biennium is expended, because this is what's helping students in terms of moving forward with their education. So this is what this is for.
Any questions?
Move approval.
We have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay.
And I
we'll go
have
to-
no further business on my committee.
Thank you, Dr. Laredo.
You're welcome.
Item 5H, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from the University of North Texas for a Bachelor of Science degree and a Master of Science degree, each with a major in biomedical engineering. Dr. Silverman.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I both a bachelor degree and a major in biomedical engineering and a master's. Consideration. However, the programs are costs associated with the program exceed $2 million for consideration.
Is your microphone on?
Those
Is her microphone on? Your microphone.
Sorry, I can hear myself talk.
The proposed programs would be the state's 7th bachelor's degree program in biomedical engineering and the 12th master's level program. However, the job market for graduates in biomedical engineering exceeds the production of graduates currently, and admission into these programs is highly competitive. The costs associated with the programs are primarily for the hiring of 8 additional full-time faculty assigned to the programs in the first 5 years. There are representatives from the institution if you all would like to hear more information about the proposed programs. However, staff recommendation is for approval with contingencies. The contingencies are that the institution hire the 8 additional faculty and provide annual reports on each of the programs for the first 5 years.
Any questions?
Where's this funding? Where's this funding coming from?
Actually, in the blue pages, you've got some information related to the funding for the first 5 years. And we do have the provost, Dr. Wendy Wilkins from UNT, and Dr. Kostas Tsoulis, also from UNT, the dean of the program, available here for you if they would like to join us. They can talk more directly about how they're going to support the program.
I'd like to ask them a few questions, if I may.
While they're coming up, Stacy, I thought there was an indication there were 2 master's programs and 3 bachelor's programs in biomedical engineering within the same region.
Yes, there are. One is offered at, actually, you have a map of those programs in your materials. UT Dallas offers the programs, as does UT Arlington. However, with such a large population as the Metroplex and the need in that area for additional biomedical engineers, the workforce need we felt was established.
Well, wouldn't it be more cost effective just to expand the existing programs than to create new programs?
Actually, I'm going to let
I'm not
the
just
institutions...
picking on them. I'm just saying statewide.
Well, absolutely. You know, that is one of the considerations that we look at when we're reviewing a proposal. We also ask that the institutions work with the other institutions already offering the degrees in that area, and I think that they can speak to this pretty eloquently, far better than I could.
Go ahead and introduce yourself. Be sure you have the microphone on.
My name is Kostas Tsoulis. I'm the Dean of Engineering.
And I'm Rosemary Haggett. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Student Success for the UNT system.
I want to point out that one of the letters of support we received was from the BioDFW, an organization of about 150 companies who deal with biomedical engineering, biophysiology, and so on, which also include UTD and UTA. Which have offered the support in that program. It's an extremely competitive program to get in, and most universities in the state, including UT and A&M, put a limit on how many students they would admit. So right now, the demand for the program definitely exceeds the ability to offer it.
And I would also point out that at the UNT system, we have the UNT Health Science Center, which is in Fort Worth. And our College of Engineering will be collaborating with the UNT Health Science Center and be able to provide a program that has that additional strength.
Let me also add that one of the areas where we're focusing at, not so much a little bit on the undergraduate level, which has to be a broader program, but definitely on the master's level, is in biomechanics. I'm sure you looked at the list of courses and you will notice that we talk about biomaterials, biomechanics, as well as rehabilitation engineering. We have an increasingly aging population, and biomechanics, prosthesis, and so on is something that will be really required in the future, not to mention a lot of our veterans who are coming back with missing limbs, traumatic brain injuries which affect their biomechanics, and rehabilitation will be necessary. The healthcare industry is, I'm not sure if it's the largest industry in the U.S., but it's definitely one of the largest industries in the U.S. And there is a reason why people are putting money in that industry, is because the need is going to increase in the future decades. Biomedical engineering is the second fastest growing program on the undergraduate level. And let me also point out that from an engineering perspective, more than 50% of the students in biomedical engineering are women, which is something that is sorely needed in an engineering program. And also some of the faculty, the majority of the faculty tend to be female, which again is something that's sorely needed for us to bring these role models for our young women who are studying at UNT engineering.
So the question would be, and I think you kind of answered it, at least at A&M and at UT Austin, but the other institutions in your region, are they at capacity and they're not able to add additional students, and you have students who want to enter this program that cannot gain access within the region?
When we go, we have recruiters and we go and recruit high schools. There are 2 degrees that are the most sought after. One is in petroleum engineering, for the obvious reasons, and the second one is in biomedical engineering, because these students just cannot have access to a lot of the programs because they are at capacity. If you look also at how do you keep a program at capacity, I don't think any dean or provost will say their program is at capacity. But the reality is, if you have 10 faculty, how many students can you serve? And that's why programs, especially programs that are as popular as biomedical engineering, set certain limits to how many students they would admit. You don't want to go above 20, 25 students per faculty member in terms of ratios, and that is one of the things that set your limits. The other limit, of course, is space. We have the space in Discovery Park. We have a building of 550,000 square feet. The university has set aside, right now we have $5 million in hand to do renovations. We've already had a programming done by Smith, which is a company that does, an architectural firm, of how would a department of biomedical engineering look like. What are the facilities that will be needed? What are the labs that will be needed? What are the wet labs that will be needed? What are the computer labs, and so on. So space we have. The university has made a commitment to hire 8 faculty. We will also be moving one of our faculty members from another department into there, so we'll have a total of 9 faculty members. So we are in position to start the program right away.
So if you do benchmark at 9 as your faculty, and using your number of 20 to 25, the conservative side, you're looking at potentially 180 undergraduate students?
We are guaranteed 9 faculty. I hope that as we get more students, we'll be able to get more resources. To give you an example, our mechanical and energy engineering program started in 2007. It now has 14 faculty. The original projections were for 8. But as the number of students have increased, we have 500 undergraduates in the program. The university is adding faculty. Not fast enough, but sometimes you get more faculty, more students than you get faculty. But we're adding faculty, and I'm hoping that this program will be able to reach 250 to 300 students very quickly, based on what we've seen with other programs. The same thing with the master's program. Our electrical engineering master's program started in 2006, and now it has 80 students. So the similar projections will hold for the biomedical engineering.
Yeah. And so you believe you have space, you believe you have funds for renovation. Now, I'm very familiar with these labs, as you can probably imagine, being an orthopedic surgeon. They're very expensive labs, yes, to not only build but to maintain.
Right.
So the funding is extraordinary. You believe you have capacity within your institution for that?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, so engineering is a top priority for the University of North Texas.
Yeah.
I would think there'd be some corporate interest in this too. I mean, the DFW is a huge area and has lots of opportunity, I would think, even for scholarships. Even my hospital system has a constant need for biomedical engineers. Mm-hmm. Lots of openings. So
one of our immediate plans is to start discussing. I mean, we'll be a fledgling department, but we'll give the opportunity to somebody to name it for a period of time.
Right.
Because since we're fledgling, we'll be cheap to name, so that might be attractive.
I would like to make a couple of points here. I noticed that Houston only has one institution that offers a master's And I think we could probably describe Houston perhaps as the energy capital.
Well, there are two, University, MD Anderson and University of Houston.
It's not listed.
It's on the master's page, the back
Master's
side.
page.
There's your master's
I don't
page.
see. Where's MD Anderson?
MD's right here.
Oh, but it's okay. I'm sorry. There's two. Okay, there's
That's
two.
also there.
Okay, we've got two there in Houston, and I think Houston could be described as the energy capital of the world, if not perhaps maybe the foremost renowned Texas Medical Center. I don't think that's probably second to none worldwide. Probably we could make a strong argument. And we have two, and then in the Metroplex, we've already got three, and you want to add four. And the question I'm asking is this a good utilization of state resources? And we continue to see what I've described over and over as an arms race among the institutions, and I'm more concerned about us pushing the state forward and not the individual institutions. It's almost like we're in a race against each other and our own selves to try to outdo each other. And what I think we really need to be focusing on pushing Texas to the forefront of the academic and research world nationally and internationally and globally. And I mean, it seems like we're all doing that.
Sir, frankly, I don't think that we're competing with each other. I think we're enhancing each other. We're competing with India and China. That's who we're competing
my point. That's exactly my point. We're competing against India and China,
right.
And it's like the rock climbing walls that I'm famous for. You know, we get a rock climbing wall at A&M that's 40 feet tall, then we got to have one at UT that's 50 feet tall, then we got to have one at U of H that's 80 feet tall. And at what point are we making good use of our collective dollars as a state?
Right.
I mean, I've been on this board 3 years, and I just keep seeing this escalate. It's just, and then when we look at our numbers in terms of where we stand globally and how we're being competitive with other countries, we're losing ground.
I spent 20 years at the University of Kansas in a state that has less than 3 million people, which has 3 major and 1 minor, with my apologies to Pittsburgh State College of Schools of Engineering, with 3 biomedical engineering programs going from master's to PhD, and they never had a problem of getting students. The DFW area is 6.5 million people. So if we are to serve it, I think that we need to provide the degrees that the students seek, and to provide the degrees that industry seeks. So I'm not in any way competing with any other university. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned, UTA and UDD is supporting this proposal, and at least in the meetings that we have, the deans of engineering at the DFW, including SMU and TCU, meet together every semester and just talk. I never had a feeling of we competing against each other. We truly are trying to do the best we can to educate the people of Texas, to provide the jobs that will be needed in the next decades, and to be able to compete with Brazil and with India and with Thailand and so on, and Korea, who are putting resources, large resources, into engineering. So in no way am I trying to make the wall taller. I'm trying to break down the walls for our students and to provide the opportunities for our industry.
Do you understand my rationale with regard to saying if we could develop or enhance the institutions that are already in place, dollar for dollar, that may be a better and more effective way to educate biomedical engineers if you were to just simply redirect those resources into those institutions and programs that are already in place? I mean, isn't it logical to assume that that might be a better way to do it?
Sir,
every institution having a program, maybe we each of us try to develop our own individual niches of excellence, and so all of us trying to be everything to everybody.
I'm a computer engineer, and I remember the time when everything was centralized in the big computer center, and if you wanted a printout, you better wait a few hours. And what was a revolution was that we can distribute computing. I feel the same thing about education. Instead of centralizing everything, being able to distribute it where the need is, both from the employers and from the students, is a better approach. But I don't control the funding, and I don't control the degree programs. This is one man's opinion. It might sound self-serving, but it's really not. So I think that being able to build multiple places of excellence will serve the state better in the long run.
Even if they're in each other's backyards?
Well, the other programs within the DFW area may well be a capacity in both what they can accomplish and may be space limited as well. I think that we've had a very positive response from those other institutions, as Dean Sasoulis has just told us. They're very supportive of this proposal. BioDFW is very supportive, and so we're looking at this as a collaborative effort across institutions. This program will have its own niche. It will have the opportunities that those other programs may not, because some of them may not because of our relationship with the Health Science Center. So we believe that we're adding capacity to the whole North Texas region and being able to bring something a little different to the table.
I will say that,
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move for approval if it's in order.
Okay. I believe Mr. Huckabee had a comment.
Well, Dennis, I really appreciate your comments. I think the way I feel about this, and you guys did a very nice job of delineating the need, I think to some degree we should let free market rule here, and I feel very strongly about that. I think and I sit on a hospital board as well. I think there is a need in the area, and as long as demand's there, we can fill classes, and certainly if we have the support of other institutions, I think this is something we should absolutely do.
They've convinced me. I'm asking questions.
Dr. Tasher has a comment.
I feel good about it.
Yeah, I am supportive, and I'll second Dennis's motion so that, for the record, you're not adding a PhD program.
No.
Make two cases for me. Why are you not adding the PhD program, and why not just a bachelor's program to start with? And it's sort of a rhetorical question. I want to hear your argument. You obviously have thought about this extensively.
I believe that before we can make a claim and a case for a PhD program, we need to have shown that we can do it at a lower level. We need to convince this board that we're doing a good job, and the employers are hiring our students, and there is a need. We also, right now, in conversation with the Health Science Center to see if we can offer a joint PhD because they have a lot of very good biomechanics people. Mm-hmm. And take advantage, who, by the way, are mechanical engineers. They're not MDs. And take advantage of that relationship. But these relationships build slowly, and they're relationships that need to build on the research level before you can go and propose a PhD. So why add the masters? In order for us to be able to recruit good faculty who will do the best job teaching our students, we need to give them the opportunity to have access to graduate students to be doing research. In order for a faculty to be at the cutting edge, they need to be the ones who are creating the cutting edge. I would not want my children, if they were studying medicine, to be taught by somebody who does not practice medicine. So that is the reason we're doing that.
I would add that maybe just to what was said, that we're not asking for that degree program yet, that the PhD in biomedical engineering may come to you in the future, and that we are building up our graduate programs in the College of Engineering. And our Board of Regents just last week gave us approval to come forward to the coordinating board with a PhD in mechanical and energy engineering, which you'll see in the future. So I don't want to imply that we're not doing any. We're not going to be coming forward with any PhD programs, but we're doing it in a very logical, thoughtful, strategic way.
Very good. We have a motion.
I'd like to make one more comment. Be clear that we're here to ask questions, and we will make sure that we vet these issues. And to sit here and not ask questions is not fulfilling my responsibility to the public. So I don't take anything that I'm saying or doing as personal. We just want to make sure that there's a good program coming forward, that there is a need, and that we're allocating the state resources in a cost-effective way. So you did a good job convincing me, and I applaud you for that. You put together a good program. You've come up with a good way to fund it. I can certainly see where you can synergize your efforts with your Health Science Center. So I just think that our job is to scrutinize these programs till they come forward to make sure that you guys are going to be successful, and that's all we want. We just simply want y'all to make sure that what you do, that you succeed at it.
Thank you.
And that it doesn't disrupt the apple cart in the Metroplex with the other institutions.
I understand.
And the fact that you have gotten the other two institutions to sign off on this, I think speaks well on your bringing this program forward. And thank you in the way you've done it.
Sir, frankly, I would have been very disappointed if nobody asked questions because I was stuck in the DFW traffic for an hour and a half to make it to the airport.
Well, we wanted to make it worth your time. So we have a motion, Dr. Tesher.
Just final comment. Make sure your counselors, especially for your pre-medical students, are advertising this as an ideal preparation for medical school, especially if they're going to go into a discipline such as orthopedics.
Thank you. Excellent suggestion.
I'd like to add that too, because I'm a health provider, and I've served. I didn't really have a true appreciation for research. Those of us that are clinicians, I think Dr. Tesher could probably attest to this along with myself. It tends to be two groups. Those are the clinicians, and then I know when I was in training at the University of Houston, there was the other doctors that were, we call them the monkey guys, that went upstairs and played with their primates to do their primate research, and we didn't give them any credit for knowing anything about patient care. But, I have developed a real appreciation when I served on the Board of Regents of how important the research component of our institutions really are. And so I think y'all have a unique opportunity there at North Texas State with your health sciences and basic science faculty along with the engineers, because I didn't realize, and I had no personal firsthand knowledge of how important an engineer plays in biomedical research. The life scientists know this aspect of it, but unless you've got some engineers in there, you can't, like David's work, you can't make the joints and then the bolts and screws and everything he uses in his toolbox work very well without that physics and that other stuff that you guys are good at, that us life scientists are not very good at. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to say that I'd really like to come see your new Campus Union building when it's completed. Okay?
We will look forward to inviting you.
Dr. Gardner.
I didn't want to slow down the vote, but I wanted to point out that when the UT system came forward with a request for additional biomedical engineering programs in Dallas 2 years ago, the commissioner pointed out part of what you were talking about today, the need to work together. And my impression, at least, is that there's a sort of a burgeoning biomedical engineering community in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so I think...
Well, I had when Stacy told me about this, I went, oh, yay. Because those of us in the DFW area know the need for this. It's really, and the partnership with the medical school is wonderful. So, very good.
Could I just...
I don't know. I think you're out of time, Dennis.
One second, please.
10 seconds.
Okay. Are y'all... I'll ask them. Will you guys hang around long enough for me to ask the question after?
Item 5I. Thank you.
We may, unless we have to catch a flight.
Okay, well, I'm going to follow
We're
you.
almost done.
Thank you.
We're almost finished. Item 5I is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to issuance of a request for applications and the allocation of the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Improvement Act funds to colleges for basic grants for 2014-15. Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This agenda item is requesting the issuance of a request for applications and to allow us to allocate the Carl D. Perkins funding for basic grants next fall. We estimate that the funding would be for somewhere around $22 million for fiscal year 15. As you know, the coordinating board serves as the state subrecipient of the federal Perkins funds. The State Board of Education provides the coordinating board with funding, and we then allocate the funds out to your colleges. Perkins Basic Grants provide support for career and technical programs, again based on a formula prescribed in the Federal Perkins Act. The institutions must use the funding to strengthen the academic and career and technical skills of students participating in the career and technical education programs, link career and technical education at the secondary level and at the post-secondary level, along with several other requirements which are delineated in your blue pages. Staff recommendation is for approval pending the receipt of funds from TEA.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, item 5. K, sorry. Consideration of adopting.
J.
Oh, okay. There's several Carl Perkins here.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
we've got 3 items.
You're right. Consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to issuance of requests for applications and the awarding of the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Improvement Act funds to colleges for leadership grants, 2014-15. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is a request to issue the request for applications for the leadership grants. These grants, we actually have a list of our priorities that we'd like institutions to consider submitting a grant request for. Again, this is for the funding for 2014-15 program year. Institutions do compete for this grant funding, and applications must address the specific goals that we lay out, including addressing the board's Closing the Gaps by 2015 goals. The project selected must have a statewide focus and provide the colleges with professional development and innovative approaches to career and technical education. The leadership grants provide support to improve career and technical education programs, and we anticipate funding to be available of about $2.3 million for fiscal year 2015. Staff recommend approval.
Questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5K is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to awarding the Carl D. Perkins Reserve Grants. Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is actually the awarding of reserve grants, which are non-competitive special project grants that the board has the option of awarding to specific projects that support career and technical education programs in rural areas or areas with high numbers of career and technical education students. The board staff recommends funding 2 projects this time around. The first is award of $220,000, which would go to Central Texas College to support their efforts in promoting the College Credit for Heroes program, and would allow the institutions to promote that program through outreach activities to veteran and service members, military education centers, colleges and universities, and career counseling centers. The second request is also for an award of up to $1 million in reserve funds to support between 1 to 5 projects to develop early college high schools that are designed specifically for career and technical education programs. As you know, early college high schools blend high school and college curricula into a simultaneous educational program that allows high school students to receive college credit, and they're targeted toward traditionally underserved students. Staff recommends approval for both projects.
Do you have the names of those high schools, or have you not?
Those have yet to be identified.
They'll have to apply for
Yes,
that.
they're going to have to apply. These would actually be for planning grants to go ahead and allow these groups to plan for such an early college high school.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5K, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation. Oh, we just did that. Sorry. Let's see. L. It's consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the issuance of requests for applications and the awarding of the grants for the Texas Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Challenge Scholarship Program. Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This agenda item is for the consideration to allow us to issue a request for application and approval of funding for the program in fiscal year 14. The request for application would be published in February of this year and support the program's third year of operation, which would begin in the fall of 2014. We think that the project would use about $6 million this time around. This is a unique program at the coordinating board, specifically because funding was provided to us through a gift, a donation, if you will, from Texas Guaranteed Student Loan Corporation of $25 million. So we envision that $25 million would support the program for about 5 years. The program is up and running. We've had 2 years of funding for the project, and it basically provides funding to institutions that offer STEM degrees at the community and technical college level, and it's really to allow those institutions to offer merit-based scholarships to students, a kind of unique approach for the community and technical colleges.
Questions? Discussion?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 5M, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to issuance of a request for applications for the awarding of grants for the Engineering Recruitment Program, Engineering Summer Program. Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This request is to allow us to issue a request for applications for the summer engineering program for the summer of this summer. This particular program was not funded by the last legislative session. It was actually just funded by the 83rd session. So the 82nd session did not provide funding to support the project. However, it's back in place. It had been funded for 4 years prior to that 2-year lag. And now there's $250,000 available to support up to 26 public and 8 independent institutions of higher education that offer degrees in engineering. We anticipate the program actually provides funding to encourage our institutions of higher education to do outreach efforts to middle and high school students. Really, it supports summer efforts to have those high school students come to the campuses and explore what an engineering career might be. Efforts are really targeted an awful lot to underrepresented minorities as well as women, to get women into engineering programs.
Where's the program held?
The institutions hold them wherever they have an engineering program, and they'll have anything that ranges from a week.
It's a camp
effort.
kind of
Yes,
thing.
it's like a camp.
Okay. Questions? Discussion?
Move forward.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes. 5N, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a request from Texas State Technical College in Marshall to operate an extension center in the city of Red Oak, Ellis County, Texas. Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 3640, which was passed by the 82nd Texas Legislature in regular session, authorized the 83rd Legislature authorized TSTC Marshall to create an extension center in Ellis County. The proposed center would be developed in phases as part of a 10-year strategic master plan, and the new site would provide courses leading to certificates and associative applied science degrees, and would include automotive repair, networking administration, pharmacy technician, and industrial systems. Staff recommendation is for approval.
I move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, so 5 5O and P are on the consent. 5Q1 is on consent. 5Q2 is consideration of adopting the Commissioner's recommendation for the committee relating to amendments to Chapter 9, Subchapter J, Academic Associate Degree and Certificate Programs, Sections 9.182, 9.183, and 9.184 of Board Rules concerning the number of semester credit hours required to earn an associate degree at a public institution of higher education. Members, you have a supplemental page on this item, and the staff received a comment, so Stacy will talk about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This agenda item amends existing rule to align with the passage of Senate Bill 497. The revisions add the language that limits the number of semester credit hours for an academic associate degree to 60 semester credit hours. Additionally, the revisions clarify that the institutions must notify all public institutions within a 50-mile radius of their intention to offer a new degree program at least 30 days prior to submitting their request to the coordinating board. These rules align to the workforce associate degree programs which the board considered and approved in October. One comment was received from Tyler Junior College, and that information was included with on the yellow goldenrod sheet that you all have. The college is concerned related to the limitation of the 60 semester credit hour rule, and we understand that. However, the law does direct us to limit the institutions to the minimum required for the degree by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, which sets that limit at 60. At the October 2013 board meeting, the board revised the definition of compelling academic reason to include programs, to include the reasoning. Compelling academic reason includes but is not limited to programmatic accreditation requirements, statutory requirements, and requirements for licensure, certification of graduates. Staff recommends no change to the proposed rules as a result of the comment and recommends approval.
Dennis.
David, I think. Give me a second first. 1 second. Okay. I think, part of this is that I can certainly see where there's instances. But we get back to this elevates the cost. I'll call it degree creep. And
I think you need your microphone on. I can't hear you.
I think we call it degree creep, and I don't know at what point we're going to be able to get that tiger by the tail and at least slow him down a little bit. That's all I've got to say.
Any other discussion? We've talked about this in the past a lot, so we have a motion and a second.
I agree. Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, let's see, where are we? All right, 5R, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the appointment and reappointment of members to the Advisory Committee on Research Programs. Stacy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This agenda item is the consideration of appointing and reappointing members to the agency's Statutory Advisory Committee on Research Programs. The committee advises the board on the Norman Hackerman Advanced Research Program, and the staff recommendation is for the appointment of 2 new members and the reappointment of 3 current members. However, the 2 new members have yet to be named, and we'll provide you all with those names at a future date so that you all may consider them. But we do ask for the reappointment of the 3 members that are on the blue page.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5S, consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee regarding institutions' plans for closure or teach-outs pursuant to Chapter 7, Subchapter 8, Section 5.75. Stacy.
Thank you. Career schools and colleges are required to notify the board of their proposed closure, and the board must approve such closures. So this agenda item serves as the notice from 2 career schools that have been or will be closing. Westwood College, Houston South, closed on August 2nd, 2013. The institution was notified of its certificate of authorization cancellation on September 9th. Additionally, Platt College Dallas notified the coordinating board in October that they will be closing in May 2014. Both institutions met the requirements for closure and teach-out plans have been met, and staff recommends approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries, is passed. So at this time, we'll take a recess and convene again after lunch. I don't believe there. Is there any other business?
In case somebody was waiting.
Okay. Thank you.
We're in recess.
I don't know.